For as long as any of us can remember, we've all operated on one core belief. When our most vulnerable loved ones get really sick, the hospital is absolutely the safest place for them. But what if that fundamental belief is just wrong? What if the very place we see as a sanctuary is actually one of the most dangerous places they can be?
Look, it's a situation so many of us have been in or will be in. Your 85-year-old mom or grandfather gets a common infection. They're confused, they feel weak. Your gut instinct, really your only instinct, is to get them to the emergency room, right?
And hey, the whole system is built on that same idea. The ambulance, the ER, the hospital ward, this is the standard of care. It feels responsible, it feels right, it feels safe.
But here's the really uncomfortable question that's driving a major rethink in how we care for the elderly. What if the evidence is telling us that for a huge number of people, that default path we all trust doesn't just fail to help, it actually causes real, significant harm?
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's stop talking about abstract ideas. Let's follow a single patient. We'll call her Margaret. She's 85, she lives in a care home, and she's come down with a pretty standard urinary tract infection, a UTI. We're going to see what happens when we send her down two very different paths.
So pathway 1, that's the one we all know. Call an ambulance, head to the hospital. Pathway 2 is the alternative. A specialized team of nurses and pharmacists brings the hospital's capabilities to her, right there in her own room at the care home. So before anything else even happens, Margaret's UTI itself carries what doctors call a 60% baseline risk. Now, that number just represents the chances of a bad outcome, like the illness getting worse or other complications popping up if it's not treated well. So that's our starting line.
But here's where things start to go wrong, and fast. An 8-hour wait for an ambulance. That's not uncommon. And during that time, the infection is getting worse. She's not getting treatment, probably not getting enough fluids. She's just waiting. That delay alone adds another 18% to her risk. And this is so important. This isn't risk from the UTI anymore. This is risk created by the system.
Then she gets to the hospital. Imagine it. The noise, the bright lights, the sheer chaos of an emergency room. After waiting 10 hours on a trolley, Margaret becomes confused and develops delirium. Now, this isn't just being a bit mixed up. It's a serious medical state that skyrockets her risk of falls and long-term cognitive damage. That adds a whopping 35% to her risk profile.
So she finally gets a bed. But during her week-long stay, she's exposed to other bugs and develops hospital-acquired pneumonia. At the same time, just lying in bed causes her muscles to waste away. It's called deconditioning. Together, these harms, caused by the hospital's stay, add another 40% to her risk.
Okay, let's step back and look at the numbers. We started with a 60% risk from her infection. But after we add up all the risks from the hospital journey itself, her total clinical risk is now 130%. When a risk score goes over 100%, it means that multiple bad outcomes aren't just possible, they're pretty much expected. The safe choice has made things dramatically worse.
All right, let's hit rewind. What happens if we send Margaret down pathway 2? The community care team gets to her within 2 hours. They start IV antibiotics right there in her own room. She's in a familiar, calm place, completely avoiding the risks of the hospital. And the total risk for this pathway? Just 43%. She started at 60%, and the treatment actually lowered her overall risk.
I mean, just look at this comparison. It's absolutely staggering. The hospital path ended with a 130% clinical risk score. The community path? Just 43%. And it's not just about safety. Look at the cost. The hospital stay cost the system about £13,000. The community treatment? Only £900. It's not just safer, it's more than 12 times cheaper.
But wait, the story doesn't even end there. The damage from this one hospital trip goes even further. It creates this hidden crisis in the system that experts call the double bed problem.
It's a really simple idea, but think about how devastating it is. When Margaret goes to the hospital, she's obviously using a hospital bed. But, and this is the crucial part, her bed back at the care home is now empty, but it's blocked. They can't give it to anyone else because they have to hold it for her. So one person is now taking up 2 beds across the entire health and care system.
So that 7-day hospital stay doesn't just use up 7 hospital bed days. No, it uses 7 hospital bed days plus 7 care home bed days. That's a total of 14 bed days vanished from the system, all for one person.
This all leads to one really obvious question.
If the hospital route is often more dangerous, way more expensive, and it cripples the system's capacity, why on earth is it still the standard way we do things? Well, the answer isn't really about medicine. It's about incentives and, frankly, fear.
And this quote really just hits the nail on the head. We've somehow built a system where every single person, the doctor, the hospital manager, is making what seems like a rational choice for themselves. But when you add all those choices up, you get a terrible outcome for the patient.
This table shows you the impossible situation doctors are in. It's called medical legal asymmetry. Think about it. Scenario 1. A doctor sends the patient to the hospital, and they get worse from a hospital infection. The official review says, appropriate escalation, everything possible is done. The doctor is safe. Scenario 2. The doctor tries to treat them at home, but they get worse and need to be admitted anyway. Now the question is, why wasn't this patient sent to the hospital sooner? The doctor is blamed. So the easiest, safest choice for the professional is the riskiest choice for the patient.
It's just a perfect storm of broken incentives. Hospitals get paid for admissions, for filling beds, not for the admissions they prevent. Community services that actually do the preventing have to eat the costs. And then you have the legal system protecting doctors for admitting, even when it leads to harm. The whole system is just geared to reward the more expensive, higher-risk choice.
But here's the good news. It absolutely does not have to be this way. The potential for flipping this whole model on its head, for making community care the default and the hospital the rare exception, is just enormous.
And we're not talking about a fringe idea for just a handful of cases here. The analysis shows that for 70 to 80% of the common reasons frail older people get sick, UTIs, chest infections, delirium, dehydration, treating them at home isn't just an option. It's the clinically better, safer way to do it.
And the effect on the whole healthcare system, it would be transformative. Adopting this model in just one single, average healthcare area could free up almost 10,000 hospital bed days a year. That's like opening a brand new 27-bed ward open all year round without spending a dime on construction.
You see, for so long, the conversation has been all wrong. The people pushing for community care have been told over and over, you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is safe. But the evidence we've just seen shows that's completely the wrong question.
The real question we all have to ask ourselves is this. With the mountain of evidence showing the harm caused by hospitalization, the delirium, the infections, the loss of independence, how can we possibly continue to ignore the clear and present danger of our own standard of care?